Please introduce yourself. Feel free to tell me anything you want to share, and then we can get started with whatever questions or anything you want to, talk to me about.
Okay. Just give me a quick second to get all the energies within me so I can get into flow of my
That's
words
okay. No
properly.
problem. Take your time. Take your time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Manuel Perez. My birthday is on August 25th, 1991.
Okay.
Quick background about me. Since I would say I've been very athletic. So from high school, I played sports, held a job, went to college for criminal justice, and from there got my degree in criminal justice and became a deputy for the state of Florida with our bar sheriff's office. And I
Okay.
served for about 6 years. I have a unreasonable amount of knowledge that's within me that
Mm,
even though I was a child growing up, when I was in the church, I knew things that the adults didn't know. And
mm.
so pretty much that allowed me to navigate life properly to the point where I knew certain tasks and certain jobs that I had to do from within.
Right.
And so fast forward to now, I'm 33. I've been to Egypt when Spirit called me to Egypt. I've been to Mexico with the pyramids over there. And so I've been quite around, and my time in law enforcement, I've seen so many things what people call paranormal activities. And
Right.
that just strengthened my resolve and my spiritual background. And from there, now I just have a lot of questions in a sense of, while I know who I am, I look for those mirrors. And the most accurate person that I can describe as who spoke to me was Dr. Malachi York, if I pronounce that right.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
And so when I began to read some of his scrolls, like things just started to go off. I was like, oh my gosh, like why do this sounds and feels so familiar to me to the
Mm.
point where there's times where I'm reading some of these lines, I feel guilty, like I was there. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, you know what? I can't deny what I'm feeling because it's internal. There's no
Right.
external factors that's influencing me, but I'm sitting in my bedroom reading these scrolls and I'm like, I know these things. And when I look at my life and the things I've been and where I'm going, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of synchronicities happening. And so even now, my mind is racing because, it's the first time I'm talking to you and
Yeah, that's all
so
good.
there's a
Yeah.
level of, I want to say I'm performing, but I'm trying to bring it down to a level where, it's just you and I having a conversation and things begin to flow
Absolutely.
more
Yeah.
clearly. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a little bit about me. I'm
So how did you come across us as in myself, OSM Vision, and when was that?
so this would say I would say early 2024.
Okay.
And
So it's been a minute. Yeah.
yeah, and it's weird. The best way I can explain it is as we shift to certain time zones or we begin to shift different perspective, things come across our channel. Start to meet new people to the point
Mm,
where I'm still here, but the people I'm coming across, the type of knowledge, the type of wisdom is like I'm in a whole universe.
right.
So in 2022, that's what I can say is when my protocol came on.
Mm,
And I was mid shift. I'm on a crazy call where we're handling a battery between a Uber driver and a Signal 20, which we called a person who had mental disorders in the
right.
street. And this guy said one thing, the devil's running out of time. And next, something just went off inside of me. And
Mm,
I'm looking around the world and I'm like, something is off. And I'm seeing all the chaotic. I'm starting to feel way more, vibrations and energies hitting me to the
mm,
point where I'm trying to shake it off, but the natural coping doesn't work. If I just try to like drink, play video games, try to distract myself, it wasn't working. And then I felt a calling. And
right.
then that was in 2022. And then that's what propelled me to start seeking more of the esoteric knowledge. And then from there, my perceptions of what reality was begin to expand and open up to the point where I began to feel people's, whenever I went to someone's home, I could feel the energy inside the home. I could
Mm,
start to see the intentions of the husband or the wife or the child and begin to decipher, disseminate what was really going on. So a
Right.
lot of my calls, I was able to diffuse or de-escalate it because I was able to sense their empathic energy and see what was really going on to the point where if it wasn't really a crime, I just spoke truth to power. And next thing you know, they're changing their whole story because they
Mm.
see that I can see through their delusion, through their illusion. And
Yeah.
so that began to get really strong. And then next thing you know, I'm starting to Google, clairvoyant, clairsentient, all
Mm.
these abilities. And next thing you know, Anunnakis are popping up, Inky's popping up. And I'm like, I remember these images as a child. Like I
Right.
remember seeing these structures. I remember walking in these certain areas. And so going down the rabbit hole, I just jumped straight in. And then it wasn't until best way I call it, it's like a radio frequency said I had to go to Egypt.
Mm.
And this was about 2022, going into 2023. I knew I had to go to Egypt. And so next to you know, before I had to go to Egypt, I had to purge myself.
Mm.
And purge myself. Have you ever seen the movie or the show Stranger Things?
Yes.
So that scene where she's put it into that chamber where the sound deprivation tank.
Mm.
My pronunciation must be sometimes I mispronounce words,
It's
so
okay. I
forgive
do
me
the
for that.
same as well. It's so good.
So
I'm following you.
so when I seen that scene, that was like a code for me because I'm like, I'm gonna have to do that. I don't know when, but it resonated so deeply with me. And so before I went to Egypt, I spent 3 months of doing sound deprivation, of clearing myself of all the dense energies that was within me.
Mm.
And those was moments where I'm inside of a full tank floating, but the hour I was inside those tanks, I wasn't there. And
Wow.
each time I started to come back to my body, it was just like, like, oh my gosh, where was I? Because
Yeah.
I'm going in water, but I was in a whole nother dimension, so to speak. And that's the first time I ever experienced a Kundalini awakening. And I was just like, wow, I wasn't touching myself. I wasn't on any other drugs, but
Yeah.
there's pulsating energy that is vibrating through my whole entire body that feels better than regular ejaculation to the point where I'm like, I'm telling my friends about this and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, you know what? I can't help you. I know what I experienced. It is what it is. And
Hmm.
then next thing you know, I go to Egypt. And then I was able to actually sit inside of the king's chamber. And I had my lapis lazuli crystal. And I just placed it on the where we know the Ark of the Covenant sat inside. And I just meditated in there.
Mm.
And the best way I can explain it now with all the knowledge I had was even though in this timeline, our pyramids are not activated, time is not, time is
Mm.
cyclical. So there was a moment where it was activated and I was there. So me being there at the present moment felt like a ritual where I was like opening up my spiritual stargate.
Mm.
And from there, I was able to go to Aswan and just visit some of the most beautiful places and just touch all
Yeah.
the, you know, stones and relics that I could and just, absorb the energy that I can. And when I came back home, I was still in law enforcement at the time. And each time I put on that uniform and I went back into these neighborhoods, like it became where it's like you're battling these entity forces, these energetic forces, and you can see how some of them are like embedded onto humans to the
Mm.
point where they're using them as puppets. And so I'm telling like my crew, like guys, like, no, we're not gonna let this person get away. Like, no, we need to sit back. This is more of I call it like a spiritual possession. So we
Mm.
just can't go ahead and manhandle them and use our gun belts or anything like that. This is something where we're gonna have to use the word to try
Mm.
to exercise this energy out of this person.
Mm.
And eventually, a lot of my coworkers saw whenever we say, "Hey, slow down," and allowed me to take lead on a call that didn't involve, escalation to the point we needed a taser or anything like that. They
Yeah.
saw the work, and they saw how calls could be handled with just speaking to people, not just at them, but to them
Mm.
to the soul level. And people, when they feel heard and seen, their energy begin to lighten up. And so a lot of those moments, and fast forward, Mexico was another download. And so now when I look at my life and all the things I've been through and my spiritual abilities, they correlate with, Dr. York talks about in his books about being clairvoyant, clairsentient, and all
Mm.
these things, being able to heal. I'm a Reiki healer. And,
Right.
you know, my abilities is to see moments into the future, You could ask my family, like you can hire a PI, and I can say, come talk to everyone I worked with, come talk to
Yeah,
everyone in the church,
no, I
and
mean, yeah, we ain't got to do that. We take
you
your
know.
word for it. All right. Which books of Dr. York do you recall or that are memorable to you that you've read, would you say?
The Man from Planet Red. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if I'm in
Risk.
the
Yeah. Man from
risk.
Planet Risk. Yeah.
I read that one. I have them downloaded on my phone. So the titles I can't think on top of my
Okay.
head,
Mm.
but like some of the key moments that I can remember where he talks about like the live and spell,
Right.
and he goes into detail about one was cast by the Disagreeables and one where Inky was curating.
Mm.
And if I'm correct, and if I'm miscorrect, I'm just
No,
trying
it's
to go
fine. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember. And
Yeah.
as I'm reading that, all I can remember is me being on this planet at one particular time, and there was a war going on. And I just remember clouds beginning to cascade over this planet, and it was enveloping us in a whole nother form of frequency. And the only way that we were able to rise up out of our frequency, because it was a form of punishment, was through the power of Christ, and not the Christ of the religion.
Mm.
It was
Mm.
the Christ of raising from our root chakra to our crown chakra and reconnecting all those energetic portals within ourselves to connect to, as above, so below.
Right.
And so I always knew the route of spirituality, the true ethic of spirituality within yourself was the route. And then, so as I began to read some of these books, I started to see how it began to correlate with the way I live my life. And
Mm.
I'm not a full on, Wu-Sabat practices, but right thinking, right action, right knowledge is something I do live by, even though I
Right.
make my own mistakes. And
Mm.
so I see Dr. York as the grand teacher, and someone like me would be like a substitute.
Mm.
And I say a substitute because my time in law enforcement, a time in my life, I was more of an elder to people who are older than me.
Mm.
And sometimes they won't give me the credit, or they'll look at me and be like, you don't look like what you've been through. It's like, well, you're judging me based on on my external features rather than listening to the words I'm speaking to or seeing
Yeah.
how I live my life. And so when you begin to, I don't know, I'll stop right there because I feel
No,
like
yeah. Yes, it's good to share your experience, and we like to know how people come into knowing about Wu-Sabat, knowing about the master teacher, Dr. Malachi York, and yeah, and I think it's a journey. So it's like, okay, where do you see your journey now in terms of where you're at, and with what we look to, what we say the future, like what do you see or would you like to achieve?
so my time in law enforcement allowed me to see how many women would choose gold over a soul.
Mm.
And then when you're able to see that, you're able to see how those consequences weigh on people's lives. And so there's a lot of times I went into homes where I seen with my own partner how the shame and guilt and grief of decisions they made based on policy or law, or
Mm.
because they had to have their own, they had to take care of their family, it caused them to harm another soul.
Right.
And when we look into spiritual law, to harm another soul is like one of the worst things you can do.
Mm.
And so with that, I was able to see how, I guess the best way the verse is I'm sorry, my mind's going blank.
That's okay.
We don't fight flesh and blood, but we fight the dark spirits, the principalities, and the high
Higher
places.
places, yeah.
When we understand that, when I see that, I can see how there are men and women in uniform. Some I worked with, lawyers, doctors, politicians. They are pure on corrupt. They
Mm.
are the disagreeables in flesh. However, they hold seat of power, and they know that they hold seat of power. So they're using that seat of power and using laws to manipulate our free will. And
Mm.
then next you know, you have righteous men who do take up the badging gun are being compromised because now they're being forced between to choose their career that they work so hard to work towards, or breaking a spiritual law because our government doesn't acknowledge the harmony of spirituality with the nature and also with how men and women should be operating.
Mm.
So the 6 years I served there, I was able to see what was really going on in the households from a spiritual perspective, what's going on in the church from a spiritual perspective, what's going on in our legal system from a spiritual perspective. And last year and a half, I was in the school system. So I saw how a lot of our standardized testing and our teachers, the best way I can explain them is they perform a form of witchcraft in the way we teach our students. We're teaching them constantly to repeat patterns that are not really conducive to their development. They're put in these classrooms that are designed more like prisons than they are designed to be
Mm-hmm.
places of, healing. I mean, places of intellectual growth and expansion. And then when these kids begin to emotionally crash because they're putting in environments that are causing them to flip out, we then have a criminal justice system here to penalize them and punish them rather than create systems that are more holistic. And
Mm.
so at that point, there's a clash between men and women who want to do good and those who want to maintain the status quo. Not everyone who wants to maintain the status quo is evil. However, they're comfortable with where the things are to the point where those who are on the bottom of them are suffering. And so there's this push for power of light in the dark. It's the same,
Mm-hmm.
that parable that goes on for eternity, the eternal battle. So with that, it came to the point where the way I was policing, the way I wanted to handle my calls conflicted with the way that they wanted to gain more bodies for our school to prison pipeline system, where
Mm.
they want more consequences rather than rehabilitation and actually to help heal the individual, especially our children. So when I began to grow my hair, and within the time my hair was in policy, I spoke out during one of our meetings when we was going to our back to school programs where we like do like active shooters, where we're talking about gang violence for drugs and all this stuff. And they're showing a lot of esoteric symbols in what the kids are tattooing on themselves. And, a lot of centurias, and they're showing pictures of some of the homes they went into. And I was like, hey guys, if you're going into these type of homes and you're seeing these types of scriptures and these kids as young as, we know gang members, some of these kids as young as 10 years old, and they're
Wow.
already giving themselves over to dark forces. If you
Mm.
think you just go in there with your guns and your laws to dominate them, you're not going to win that war. You're
Mm.
actually fighting entities that are using children as soldiers, and you're going there and just harming the vessel, thinking that you're actually doing well. Well, like that's going to backfire. Well, a lot of people in my command didn't like that. So
Mm.
they took a picture of me and they sent it up to chain of command. So they're going to try to discipline me on the thickness of my hair.
Right.
Well, if we're all grown men in the West,
Mm.
we have over 300,000 kids missing. They're being trafficked into the West. We have a drug epidemic problem where we know pharmaceuticals are selling drugs to our population that are highly, highly, addictive. We have a case of, how much schemes, frauds, my mind is trying to rush. I'm trying to read it back there. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah.
We have so much corruption going on. And as men, it's our job to protect our women and children. But when you see other men are willing to try to backstab men who are actually trying to do a righteous call, it's like, wait a minute, whose side are you really on? If my
Mm.
hair is that much of a liability, I understand. But the only reason why I spoke up because we're dealing with something that's bigger. We shouldn't be trying to arrest children. We'd be trying to help them. But instead of
Yes.
trying to help them, you rather try to punish me or put me in my place. I'm a free black man at the end of the day, or African man, or Nubian, Negro. And
Mm.
so I'm always going to hold on to my roots before I hold on to any career job given to me by any other man, especially if it's
Right.
not with my spirit. And
Mm.
so between last year, I would say September is when I resigned because they started to suspend me. They try to put fear into us because if we lose our job in this economy, you might as well be dead. So a lot of people
Yeah.
know that our jobs is our lifeline to even be sustained, especially in America. And so a
Yeah.
lot of these employers use that as a form of slavery to a lot of men and women who really want to do well, but they can't. And
Mm.
so that kind of gave me the fire to realize if we're not actually uplifting first the next generation to take over and actually raise them with right thinking, right knowledge, and ability to, be self-governed and self-sovereign, we're going to end up being in a situation when we're old in age and we have a population that doesn't know how to take care of themselves, let alone take care of the aging population. And there are those who are okay with that. So
Mm.
after I left, this is where I took my spiritual business, Return to Spirit, Reiki healing, to the next level where I started to do pop-up shops, which you're seeing all
Right.
wire wrap crystals that I make that I now sell at my crystal shops, and I also just give people a quick rundown of the chakra systems, on how our different energy systems can affect our emotions.
Right.
And down the west, our lower three, our root, our sacral, and our solar are the things that we have most imbalances, which is causing a lot of crimes. Not because people are criminal, but just because people don't understand how to regulate their body, mind, and souls. And
Mm.
so we need to start creating more curriculum that's designed, especially for the youth, that teach them about emotional regulation, about the chakra system, about who you are in your own tradition and your own culture. And
Right.
so that leads me to Wu-Sabat in the sense of, while I'm very multifaceted, where I've said in my email where I'm a reincarnated because I felt and I can see the many lives I lived. And so a lot of the wisdom I speak to people, or a lot of the advice or experience I tell people, is from within me.
Mm.
And maybe not this video will give it all out, but I'll say if you spend time with me, we have conversations longer and longer, you're going to be like, okay,
Yeah.
who is this guy?
Right.
And I'm still figuring myself out. So I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal, but I know I'm different from most people. And
Right.
so because I know I'm different from most people, I'm seeking others who understand that difference and are trying to reach that elevation of enlightenment, that elevation of, seeking thyself first before anything of this outer world.
Mm.
And so with that, the way I see people, I help people is I live my life. One of the callings that Spirit has put on my life is to express who I am authentically the best I can.
Yeah.
And there's still discipline. So when people look at me and they think, oh, he's just some spiritual woo person, they're like, no, I went and got my degree. I
Mm.
went and served and protected my community. I did all these things to show that I have the discipline. At the same time, I'm also showing you that I'm also free. And
Mm.
so I like to show the especially young black men who are going there here, knowing their roots here, or our young black woman is, hey, our culture, who we are, there is something powerful. There is something beautiful about it. And then you're
Right.
going to see black men and black women who are going to now show the young generation of how it's really done, and not from the inverted matrix that we see with hip hop or the celebrities, but from a really holistic point of view. Doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean that we're all some superior beings, that we don't make sin or anything like that. But we
Yeah.
understand when we do fall, how to say sorry or ask for forgiveness, and all how to constantly better ourselves. Whether it's by leaps and bounds or just small increments. And so that led me to start, going online, meeting people, talking to people, and actually expressing myself, because one of the hardest things is to put yourself out there because it does bring in criticism.
Yeah.
Uh, if I'm in person, bring it all day. That's what I can explain it is when I was in uniform, I was battling the dark forces.
Yeah.
The best way to explain it, the grid work I was doing wasn't designed to really go out here and pretend to be some Bible thumper, or pretend to be this man with a gun and a badge trying to clean up the crime of the street. It was like, no, I'm
Mm.
going to do healing work, and you're going to see the healing work, and then you're going to have no choice but to acknowledge the truth that you saw. When he saw Deputy Perez, Deputy Badge 18841, go into this home, and instead of arresting someone, he was able to speak to someone. And next, those people are saying thank you. These people are crying. These people are being held in their hands. You're seeing another way that someone you possibly didn't see or you didn't want to acknowledge.
Mm.
So the more we live our authentic life, and people are starting to see all these different perspectives, it's you can't deny it anymore. And so as we're going into the new age, especially the year of the nine, it's like the old ways is dying faster than people can try to recreate it, because people are no longer accepting the lies anymore. Is that making sense?
Yeah, you're making a lot of sense. And that's why I was asking, where's your future? What do you see? Because one of the things that we encourage people to do is like you did, which is recognize the way the master teacher Parnabab Yanun phrases it is that people wear what we call a mental uniform, and just because you have a uniform on, it doesn't give you the right to abuse others or kind of like, you know, um, abuse the power that you have. And we're encouraging those who do come to that realization to be able to say, look, you need to bring those skills and come out of that establishment that it's not really, about healing, but and you say rehabilitation, but it's just more about punishment and just keeping people down, and coming to our world, coming to Wu-Sabat, so we can really build a new world and show people how it's done with love, with love and unity, with a shook, because when people have a mental uniform on, it's almost like they forget that the the establishment in itself perpetrates that. So you're one of those people that, of course, you were using your own mind. So it wasn't like, okay, I'm like, I'm in the army as a soldier. They give me a uniform and tell me to go and kill people. And then I just do it because I'm wearing a uniform. And you forget that, you're a sentient being. And what happens is when people then follow instructions to their own detriment and they come back, they suffer from PTSD, because now the reality of those spirits, those souls that you've, endangered or harmed or taken unalived, etc. They haunt you, and then you come back
Oh,
and you got all of these
oh,
spirits with you. You can't sleep. You can't. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's good to know that you've been through the entire system and realized, and have come out, and as we're building a nation, we need everyone with those types of skills, experience, because we're going to do is rebuild a better world. And that, when we say that to people, it may seem or sound far-fetched or overwhelming, because the current systems and world we're living in, it took thousands of years to implement, 6,000 years and more, but a concentrated effort in the last 400 years. So we have to really, that's why I say, once you come to that realization of who you are, and the next thing is, okay, how do I reach other people? How do I empower other people or teach them, so that they can recognize their own, divine godliness as well, so they can also bring that out, and then together we can go about, making the necessary change. Because as you say, whether people accept it or like it or not, this change is inevitable and it's happening. And you know, the dimensional shift taking place, the consciousness shift is taking place. The falseness is fading, and truth is prevailing, and more truths about everything is now being, revealed. So yeah, it's just about now connecting with the right people who are vibrating on the same, resonance and frequency, so we can come together and work together. So yeah, appreciate love what you just shared.
thank you. Yeah, so what I do see, and it's one of the problems I'm running into now. Well, I'll say a problem I'm running into, but what I'm navigating my way out of is a lot of people, when we're speaking about the lower nature, is the three chakras: the root, the solar plex, and then the sacral. Oh, I'm
Mm,
sorry, backwards. But a lot of the calls, a lot of the people I speak to, I see that the blockages are in the lower three chakras. Their fear is that they are unstable, or they feel the white supremacy of this government. The
mm,
sexual energy, there is a lot, and I mean a lot of trauma that is
mm.
done, especially to our youth. I
Right.
openly say this now. When I was 60 years old, I was traumatized. And then that didn't break me because I already had spiritual protection. And so that would allow me to, instead of spazzing out and losing control, I was able to actually, with good family around me, to still keep myself protected, have my aura healed, and then now with that experience can now teach and talk to others who've been through other situations that have been even worse than what I've been through. But
Right.
there is a target, especially for our young girls, to traumatize their rooms to the point they have a hatred for a lot of men. And this is where I go to a lot of calls where there's false accusations of domestic violence, or just extreme volatile anger that is being emitted towards the black man or the black boy, just because there's a lot of hurt within our black women. And
Mm,
this is now being perpetuated through our music, through our media, and
right.
then through the glorification and rewarding of punishing or hurting each other, especially black men and black women. And so, as I see, as we're beginning to shift our perspective, dress differently, speak differently, and live differently. There are those who capitalized and made their wealth, made their names known through the harming of Nubian Black men and women.
Mm.
Those are starting to fall away, and now they don't have a foundation to recoup what they're now, you know, best way of playing it, you get it how you live. And
Mm.
so we've been getting it with just negative forces, and now we're entering an era where we're no longer allowing those negative forces. Now they're being left to scramble, but
Right.
being left to scramble, they're still trying to pull us back down into their level so that we can be continue to be used as batteries for them. And
Mm.
so I see the older generation of men and women who haven't woken themselves up, who don't want to change, are trying to prevent voices like yours, like mine, and then those from actually reaching the youth, because the youth is that's the cash crop.
Right.
And they are trying to corrupt the youth by having them become like them. Well, you have a new form of, a new leech form to drink the energy. But
Mm.
my job or my calling is to really talk to the youth generation, the people who's been through what I've been through, the people who I've saying, listen, I've seen what you've been through. I've been into your homes. I've been in situations where you were unheard. And now let's actually switch that and begin to give the right knowledge and the right teaching. Now,
Mm.
when we get to actually do that, it's going to put a giant light on all the adults who's been manipulating us.
Mm.
And they're going to have to now answer. If we knew since the 80s, the 90s, the war on drugs, the war on all these things were not working, why are we still in 2025 perpetuating the same laws? At
Mm.
some point, we need to look at those who claim to be our family, our friends, our lawyers, whatever, and think you're making wealth off the pain and punishment. We're not trying
Right.
to destroy everything that you have, but it's like if you're not willing to stop the exploitation, eventually you are going to be the enemy. And
Well,
so
it's
this,
happening now, as you can see. And this is what we call people selling their souls, for money, because, as you say, those so-called celebrities or artists and people that, you know, perpetuate this, what we call this the spell of ignorance, or the spell of Leviathan, the spell of sleep. They get paid a lot of money, and it becomes a thing where they're just thinking about themselves. So greed comes into it, me, myself, and I. And it's like, what will you not do for money? But as you know, what profits a man to gain the whole world and to lose their soul? So they get all, and the thing is, ironically and very unfortunate for them, is that they don't actually get any power, because money is not power. So they don't even see what money is, because it's an illusion. And at best they get given, like, bank accounts with digits in it, or plastic cards, platinum cards or black cards, and they can just buy material stuff, which, if they default on, they just come and take back anyway. So they buy the Rolexes and the Bugattis, the fancy cars and the houses, and give it all back to the name brands. And then, in the case of some of these music moguls that are now being put through the courts, and they're starting to take everything back and lose everything. But meanwhile, even if you go back to the biggest stars, your Michael Jacksons, your Whitney Houstons, your James Browns, and all the greats that are no longer here, because they've managed to eliminate those proper tones, even though they were using those tones to, as you say, push their agenda. But now, you're like the Pied Piper, where you've taken a lot of young people astray and wishing on a dream, when these young people are our future neuroscientists,
yep,
our healers, our doctors, our teachers. And so Wu-Sabat is, yeah, trying to connect the young people back with the, what we say, the elders, and vice versa. So yeah, it's about turning the hearts and souls of, as you say, they've destroyed many families, because that's what they've done, like you said earlier on, where the woman, being the nurturer and being the goddess, if they manage to get to her, they get to the entire family, as she's normally the one that they give the money, they give,
Mhm.
the jobs
Our
so that,
our
you know,
government is
yeah.
that's why I try to tell people, those who are willing to hear, like, our government is Rumpelstiltskin.
Mm,
It can bribe you and me, men and women, but we only have our souls to give. However, if we can capture a woman and then have her birth every 9 months, or, you know, bi-yearly, we can
mm,
get 7, 8, 12 souls out of her. And
right.
all we have to do is keep a righteous man away, because there's a lot of loser men out here. I'm gonna be very honest.
Of
There,
course.
those, and then, put her in housing that is government funding, give her the government money, give her a government education, and then next thing you know, you're now being raised and protected by an entity that is not truly of a righteous man or a righteous community. And
Mm,
so a lot of us who are grown up in these, in the West, and we are going to public schools, people don't realize that while it looks like a nice school on the outside and all the stuff, what's actually happening eternally to our spirits and our emotions is being molested, it's being
mm,
cut down, it's being manipulated and warped to serve the agenda of these big corporations, big pharmas, and then, big labels. And so as long as our women are being branded with Gucci, Prada, and stuff like that, they're encouraging the youth to then go ahead and make these products. And so instead of us,
that's
grabbing our
right.
and then bringing it back to the divine mother, the divine father, and building our communities, we're using all our life force, and for our women, their fertility force, to build up their empires, which is then poison us and destroy us. It's not the common
That's right.
man who's poisoning
We
the water.
Yes, right. And this is why now that we're waking up and starting to pull away, they will do everything in their power, as you see, like with what they've done to all our greatest teachers and leaders, is to try and turn people away from them,
Mm-hmm.
imprison them, and if possible, unalive them, and hope that that's the end of that. But as you know, we keep reincarnating. So they know this is not going to stop until this new paradigm shift has taken place. And this is happening. And, Wu-Sabat is doing that. And anyone else who's, waking up. And, it's all about let's come together. And I think, they're seeing it even in the motherland. They're seeing how people are now.
Burkina Faso and everyone
But
is beautiful.
exactly. They're not like as just easily influenced as it used to be in the past because yeah, the six ether forces are coming down and this is that time. The sun cycle is here and we've just got to get the word out because what you said earlier on, when people feel like there's no options or they have no alternatives and they don't know what to do. They without a job, like how am I going to survive? Because they don't tap into that internal power within them to know that they can do what you're doing, like create something for yourself. You know, instead of looking for a job, create one for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, we are mighty people, and we just got to keep reminding because it's a remembering tool. It's already encoded in our DNA. It just needs to be triggered. And that's what reading the books by Dr. York or hearing his voice, because he's one of those people that, he's still here, still alive and very powerful voice. And they saw the influence that he has. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're just trying to obviously stop him. But we know this is inevitable. It's going to happen. We just got to help and do our part. And anyone else who listens to you and me or listens to this recording in the future, hopefully it will spark them off to realize, you're gods and goddesses, you have the power, you can do anything, you just gotta unite and work together because there is strength in numbers, and all our teachers, leaders have said the same thing. And I think we're starting to get it. Sometimes we may be a little bit impatient and want to see it happen, quickly, immediately, but nature takes time and everything, has to, grow according to nature and how it works. So yeah,
Ashe.
yeah.
So I when you mentioned reincarnation, in my past life, the ones I was able to find photos of myself. So
Okay.
if on your end or my end, I'm not sure if I can share my screen, but if you were to type
I
in,
think you should be able to share your screen if you want to.
okay,
Uh,
so I'm going to, I will show you this.
all right.
Uh,
Let me see if I can. I'm sure you can share your screen.
uh, wait a minute. I'm not the most techno.
All right.
I'm
There you go.
not.
You should have a green button that has
Where is it?
share on it right at the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Hmm.
And so let me get it ready. So have
Okay.
you seen the recent movie Sinners?
I was just speaking to somebody about that, and I haven't seen it to answer the question, but everybody keeps telling me to see it. And there are people, sharing videos saying that there's real witchcraft in it, and for people not to see it because they use actual real witches and things like that. But it's one of the ones I had on my list to see. But I'm hearing good things about it in terms of what people are saying. So
Uh,
no,
for
I
me,
haven't.
it was an amazing movie.
Okay.
It spoke to um, a lot of my heritage. When I was able to news ancestry.com, I was able to find my bloodline from here in the West all the way back to Mali. And when I was able to actually trace that bloodline, I was able to actually connect a long relative with her father, who was one of my uncles. And that story on itself was just a beautiful synchronicity. But
Mm.
the more I began to delve deeper and I came across different films, I actually found that in my past life, which now makes sense of how I speak and what I was able to do, is I was an ancient griot in the
Okay.
kingdom. And so I'm going to show you a photo, and you don't have to, say yes or no, but make your own assumption.
That's interesting.
So what we understand, the movie, it opens up with the scene talking about the griot. A griot is a being that's between both the physical world and the spiritual world. And we then use our abilities through music, through sings, through oral tradition. So I have a lot of the oral tradition of my bloodline within me. And so when I talk to people, I like to give them a story through a lesson. And
Right.
so as I was finding myself, finding my history, this is the image I came across. Let me see if I can blow it up. So I'm looking at this image one day and I'm like, there's no way this person looks like me. And
Mm.
I can feel a connection. So if you look at this photo person right here,
Yeah, that's the one I was looking at.
and the funny part about it is I'm looking at this photo and give me 1 second. I'll put on the jewelry I have that's similar to what he has. And
Okay.
I just have to show you sometimes. So this is one of my 7 chakra crystal pendants that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, for when I was, ever since I was a young boy, let me grab this. Sorry. I do play the guitar. So
Okay.
a lot of who I am is shown in these photos about, about who and what I'm capable of doing. And
Right.
so sometimes I tell people like, hey, reincarnation is real. And then I'll show them a picture of this. And then from there, I began to show them different scripture where the name of Emmanuel will show up. Then I'll ask them, who am I to you? What
Mm.
kind of aura do I give to you? What kind of energy do I emit around you? Energy doesn't lie. So I'm not here to try to manipulate you into believing something that is not true. But I'm saying with your own senses, your own eyes, your own ears, your own abilities. What are you being able to perceive? But one of the things I try to teach people of, not being deceived is be able to discern or use your own intuition, to see what someone is speaking the truth.
Mm.
A person might not be accurate in a sense that he might have some wrong information, but you be able to hear the resonance of the authenticity that's being resonated out of his voice. And so as we begin to, tap into these energies, tap into these, gifts, this is
Mm,
where I've even heard you mention about, we have bloodlines of the grizzly, the family blood. We have like 30 spirits within us,
that's
and
right.
each of them have a different gift. Each of them has a different things that they can come in and start to speak to us and give us the ways in or out of how to get out of situations. I
Yeah.
live.
So we say 30, but you have to subtract anyone that is alive. So you subtract yourself. So you would have 29 or less because of the subtraction. So that you are the reincarnation of that that tree. So you've got all their voices, all their DNA within you, and some of them didn't make the grade in terms of their endarkenment or their realization or consciousness, like how you're doing now. So
Mhm,
some of them are very low vibrations, and others are high. So you've got what we term agreeable and disagreeable within you, and the ones that have made it, they're encouraging you through the voices you hear in your head, through the energies and everything that you feel. They try to encourage you and raise you higher so that you can be amongst them. And the ones that didn't make it, they're still caught up in the lower vibrations, and they're trying to relive or burn out those desires that they were not able to burn out whilst they had a physical body. So you being that physical body that they can utilize, they will try to influence you to live and do those things. So, if they liked I don't know, if they were like into a lot of alcohol or cigarette smoking or whatever, they will continuously try to encourage you to smoke or drink and stuff or anything else. It could be, you know, sex, whatever. And so when you're in tune, as you just said, is to be able to discern where these voices are coming from. Who is it is trying to get you to behave or do something that is going to lower your vibration. Some of it is also external, as you say, the system, the matrix, the governments, the frequencies that they're putting out. So you've got to be able to know how to listen to your voice and the voices of those within you who, yeah, who mean you well and want to help you to continue your development spiritually, mentally, etc., so that you can be amongst them when you transition.
mhm.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's great. So like I do feel the disagreeable and agreeables within me. And I would ask you from your expertise. I utilize both in a sense of there are times where I'm not going to be able to reach someone trying to talk all high and mighty,
Yeah.
and so I go low. And then there's times
That's
I do
right.
smoke. I smoke marijuana, and I don't smoke marijuana to escape and be all lost in the clouds. It allows me to dissipate any other situation where I am, and I can just empty myself and then be there for that person. And then when I'm there for that person, I'm able to mirror or feel everything that they're going through. So there's times I'm like, you're crying to me not because you're upset. You're crying to me because you got caught or you didn't get the result you wanted.
Mm,
However, there's still healing in the sense of you being able to acknowledge that, understand if you were to try this again, you might not get the same result. And then, am I saying this correctly? I'm sorry, my mind, sometimes my
that's
mind
okay.
travel
I,
and
I
just
mean,
get
that's one of the things that, again, this is why I asked with Wu-Sabat, to be your best and highest self. We don't take any intoxicants, and of course, people may be going through a process of weaning themselves off things, but yeah, because like again, you don't want to have any distortions or any kind of like influences where you're not sure if it's a positive or a negative one. So we view any type of, whether it's cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, whatever, and these days you're not entirely clear of the source. Of course, things in their natural state, as herbs we partake in, but yeah, we don't really advocate any smoking of any sort. So yeah, I will be, I'll be straight up with you regardless. And at the end of the day, if you want to be the best version of yourself, that's what Wu-Sabat is here to help you to reach. And it may mean like having to give up a lot of, habits and certain things that will hold
I'm
you
aware
back.
of that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yes, like don't get me wrong, like it is something that I don't endorse it,
Mm.
and I've only done it after how old I was 30. I think 30 was the first time I ever touched it, and that
Right.
was because before then I had an objective. I had to get into law enforcement. I had to get all
Right.
these things done,
Hmm.
and you can't have any
Yeah.
type of drug
They
system in
test
your
you anyway and things like that.
life.
Right. Hmm.
So me able to leave it is going to be, I do see myself in the future, letting it go and stuff like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It's a part of the journey that, that I am on. And so
Sure.
I acknowledge that. And then when the time comes, I do plan on letting
Hmm.
it go. A question I do have
Sure.
is when we look into like names and numerology and birthdays, when I look at my name is Manuel Varez. And when I break down that into numerology, that is three for Manuel, six is Varez, and we add it together is nine.
Mm.
And when I look at my birthday, I'm born August 25th, 91. So that is within the Virgin month, born on the Sunday of the 25th. And I start to look at all these correlations and look at the path I chose in life, the abilities that God and the Spirit has given me. And all that comes back to when I claim that I'm a Neturuis Horus or
Mm.
the Christ energy.
Mm.
And the life I live is I walked among the homeless. I was among the prostitutes. I was among the broken and the most lost people. I'm sorry.
Mm.
And I look around, it's like, okay, although the universe is playing a grand trick on me, and I'm not trying to say, oh, claim, I'm a Christ return, but the energy and my abilities are within me.
Mm.
And the way I live my life is according to who I am. It's not a facade, it's not a show, and I don't claim to be perfect. And so when I look at all the names and all the people, people like Dr. Malachi York and a lot of other highly intuitive people, it's like I feel like I'm a part of the grand scheme.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm gonna help you with that. You see, what it is the way the master put it, and this is why he spent 30 years of, teaching us what we wanted, which was, between the years 1970 to the year 2000 AD, teaching us what we wanted because being subjugated and being made to feel like we're the lowest of the lowest in every walk of life, a lot of us forgotten that we're great. So he said, after you finish wallowing in how great you are, like you are the Abrahams, you're the Moses, you're the Jesuses, you're all the greatest people in the scriptures. It's like this is why he put out a series of scrolls called the God series. Because when we start to discover our abilities and our powers and who we are, we sometimes find it we find it strange when we're telling people how great we are. But he's like, once you finish wallowing in your ego of how great you are, how you're your Moses and Jesus and Abraham and all of the great people that they teach you about in their world in the monotheistic religions. Once you finish all of that, then I can get to really teach you about your real powers and who you are. So there's nothing strange to us when people start to recover that I have these abilities. I can heal. I can do this. I can do that. And I lived many lives in the past, and because you still yet to receive full functioning of your higher senses, your clairvoyance, your telepathy, your intuition, your clairvoyance, and so there's more to learn about who you really are. You're just literally scratching the surface, and this is why within Wu Sabat, the first step is to, get switched on. You're activated, your eyes open, and now you start to, as you say, discern and know good from evil. And know, have knowledge, start to apply, using your mind, actual facts, and then the journey begins because there are other levels of learning within Wu-Sabat where you have orders, and these orders are not, the things within those orders are not just taught in public to any and anyone. So
Mm,
he had, sacred schools like back in Egypt where we had the mystery schools for people to come and be initiated and learn certain things that were given through mouth to ear and as secrets. So he had the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, for example, sons of the green light. And then all of these metamorphosized into AEO, which is the ancient Egyptian order. Then you also got many orders within Wu-Sabat, like the Brotherhood, right? And that goes into what we call the actual ancient Egyptian Masonic order. Then you have the Sisterhood, which deals with the Eastern Stars. You see, OES, the Order of the Eastern Stars. You have the Shriners. You have many orders. You have the Madrasu, which is a disciple or student association for young disciples. And he had the young disciples, orders from way, way back. And there's the brotherhood of the black. There's so many, the brotherhood of gold and black. There are so many different aspects to your development as a being to learn about being a true etheric being, a full nine ether being where through your diligence in studying, you will be able to elevate and receive like your barothry gland back. And, that gives you a lot of power in terms of you have to be very responsible, and you coming through that type of discipline with law enforcement, working with children, working with this is why I asked you the question, because you had what we call a then, which is in the past. We have a now, and then you have a then, which is the future. And everyone that comes into Wu Sabat has to make a choice of, okay, great, you're being awoken and liberated, but in order for us to have complete autonomy and be able to use our full potential, you have to make that decision of how serious you want to be. And some people just read the books, which is great because it's still of benefit. It's better than anything you're gonna get out there in this Western world. Some people just attend classes and it's just talking heads. We talk and talk and talk, and others take it seriously to the point where they want to become devoted and get closer to you know the master teacher, because he is a 320 over 720 degree being. So he's a spiritual master, and he has mastered everything on the planet, what we look at as the physical world, and he also has mastered the spiritual, what people term the spiritual. So he has the ability to raise you to becoming a supreme being like himself. You see, so yeah, people who have got potential, because some of us have gifts, some of us can heal, some of us can see auras, some of us are clairvoyant, we can see interdimensionally, some of us are able to, utilize telepathy and read people's minds. And there's so many things we can do, but nothing is as powerful as when we combine that and amalgamate all our power and skills together, so we can rebuild like the pyramids and rebuild cities. And you see in the movie Black Panther, right? So
oh my
they'll
God.
rebuild Wakanda. We can
I
do anything so that we're not still like stuck in the matrix. So we're unplugging people from the matrix by way of Wu Sabat. So you hear the phrase, many are called, few are chosen, or he says, I sift amongst the many to find those true that are really willing to, like, take this thing to the next level and take it seriously. Yeah. So don't be amazed at your powers. Yeah, you can be like when you're climbing a mountain, you get to the top of the mountain, but it doesn't stop there. You gotta be pleased and take it in, and then take a breath, and then be ready to climb to the next level because the journey continues. So yeah, it's nothing to be aware of your abilities and what you can do, and but there is a higher level still to continue with the growth.
It's like a part of me has to like it's I have to work that out because I
Yeah.
promise I would say especially last year 2024 to now 2025 where I was like letting my friends and family members know I'm like listen the year of the nine we're going to something completely different. They're looking at me like I'm crazy, but they always come back and be like, you know what, you're right.
Mm,
Or so many people, either when I was in work, whatever, have come to me and told me like, hey, you know what? After we had this conversation, this happened, or after you spoke to me, this thing happened. And so a lot of people who was the naysayers or doubters
mm,
eventually always had to come back and say, you know what? The advice you gave me was accurate. And I'm
mm,
like, advice didn't come from me. It's like this is where I'm trying to tell you, like, I am tapped in, like, I speak to spirit.
mm.
Spirit gave me these words to give you, but you don't want to accept it because you're still, they might still be a Christian or a Muslim, whatever. So it's
Right.
hard for them to take the credit because I'm not willing to claim their religion. So
Mm,
now they're stuck in like in a constant dissonance where it's like, dang, I was just healed by
mm.
someone who is not of my religion, and
Right.
they don't know how to compute that. And so I still walk around, sometimes I feel people like try to challenge me because you could feel when people start to send you negative energy. And
Mm,
because the evil eye, how some people explain it, there's an energetic pulse that I can feel. And
right.
sometimes the person I'm speaking to, I'm like, I'm speaking to you because I'm actually not trying to pretend like I know it all, but my spirit is giving you a word.
Mm.
But instead of accepting that, I can feel the enemy hitting me. So sometimes I was like over explain myself so that they don't think I'm into some type of dark craft or anything like that. But just like you mentioned, it got to the point where I'm like, you know what? The more I keep over explaining myself, the more I feel like I'm depleting myself. So it's like,
Yeah, I mean, the best
find
thing that I can say is to, yeah, just read some of the scrolls, like, because the master teacher goes into things like, black magic, white magic, is black evil, many, scrolls that will help you to know more about yourself. And it's about what you're doing. It's like you can have all the power in the world, and if you don't do anything with it, it's just as useless as not having it. So, so yeah, it's about coming into the community and working with other people to do great things, because ultimately, it's not about convincing people about who you are, what you are. It's about, it just flows. You let it happen. The results speak for themselves. The master teacher's work speaks for itself. It's not, you don't have to try and convince anybody. It's the same with us or yourself. It's like, if you're great, do great things. Don't just keep saying how great you
let's
are.
do
Like,
it.
show us. And some people don't like that, because this is what you're saying. Like, the religious world or the monotheistic religions, they claim a lot of things and say a lot of things, and then when you tear it apart in terms of just dissecting it and showing them that, this was constructed by beings, extraterrestrial beings, who have an agenda, and there are agreeable and disagreeable extraterrestrial beings, and we are here as those, the highest beings on the planet, the highest beings in terms of whatever way you want to look at it. We're the ones that are here to help bring about this change, and whether they want to accept it or not, right knowledge is right knowledge, wrong knowledge is wrong knowledge, and truth is truth. This is one of the most famous sayings of the master teacher: truth is truth. It's not about what robes you're wearing. You see, like, the Pope wearing robes, and you go to like mosques and to churches, everybody's wearing robes, wearing oils, and wearing jewelry, crosses, and all kinds of stuff, and it looks good on the outside, but what is it real inside? The internal you, is it real facts, or are you putting on a facade? You're putting on you know, a show.
Yeah, designed to cause an illusion for the external eye. But when
Exactly.
you look into the third eye, you're able to see the intention. Yeah, it looks good on the outside, but you begin to see the substance
Right.
of when you're drinking dirty water, it's dirty water. And
That's
so
right.
when you're
That's
drinking
right.
it and you feel like, hey, while it's in a pristine, bejeweled, bottled, what you're
Mm-hmm.
actually taking in is not of good quality. You're gonna
Absolutely.
now have, you have to now make that choice of do you want to continue to drink this dirty water or do you want
Or
to find a
ex-
cleaner source?
exactly, exactly. Yeah. That's why Wu-Sabat is touching so many people. It's reaching those that are real and want to see the change, because you have to become the change that you're looking for.
Yep,
You can't just, point fingers at other people. And as you say, yes, we can talk about the problems. We can talk about what others have done to us, or we can get up and do for self.
yep.
And that's where we're at. Wusabat, it's about, let's fix it instead of just dwelling on it, and we are doing it. And the more we come together and put it into practice, let's build those schools that we want to use to teach. Let's build those hospitals. Let's build those healing centers, where we can actually heal people properly. Let's build the environment that we want to live in, because nobody wants to live in hell. And some of these neighborhoods you go into, they're literally hell because of,
Third world country. And I live in
yeah,
the West, and it's like there's a level of guys. We're supposed to live in one of the most richest country, and I can drive 2 blocks where there's starving children. We have an issue with that.
right,
And
exactly.
then instead of actually solving the issue, we're pointing fingers, and everyone wants to then start, well, it's their fault. I'm like,
Mm,
how can you blame someone who never got a proper education, never had proper place to sleep, never had a proper upbringing? And so instead of actually getting off their high horse and willing to get into the mud with them and start building up, it's rather, well, I achieved this and you didn't achieve that.
mm,
And that has escalated to the point where it's like, you know what? I can't be a part of this anymore. And so
mm,
you're going to see me walk away. And then that's why I like to show, especially the youth. Then he's like, hey, where did you go? I'm like, I left because I couldn't help you the way I wanted to.
mm,
And then you see the light bulb start to go off because a lot of these kids are being lied to. And so
mm.
you see a lot of the youth rebellion against their own fathers and mothers because they see how their own parents have become slaves to the system.
That's
And so
right.
they follow their parents, they lose respect for them because, like, when I was hurting, when I was calling on you, you weren't there for me. And we
Mm,
see that you're part of the same system. So the
right.
only outlet that they are currently being given are the outlet of rebellion through destruction. But
Mm,
when we're destroying our own vessels, then we're actually hurting our own emotions by the way we're treating our partners and stuff like that. That all
mm.
comes back to us. And next, the devil, we're going to call it, has a new recruitment because now we have a whole
That's
bunch
right.
of
That's right.
generations are
Yeah.
filled with pain and shame rather than the love and healing of God from within. And
Mm,
so, where was I going with that? So pretty much the medicine is just to flip it on reverse or flip it on its head and actually begin to teach, like I said, the right knowledge, the right thinking, and the
mm-hmm.
truth. And the truth will always pierce through the lie. And so once
Absolutely.
these kids hear truth from a man or woman who's actually living their truth, it resonates 10 times louder than the man or woman who's covered in the false gold trying
Yeah.
to preach. And so living our
Yeah.
lives, is
That's
great.
it. That's what Wusabat's here to do, man. And yeah, we just got to keep on going, keep reaching people and waking them up. Yeah. We've come. Yeah, we've kind of gone over time already, so I'm not sure if you have any other last burning questions.
Mm.
I do.
No,
I have.
do you have any programs in South Florida or any what's about
What are we gonna do? You're in the Telegram group, right?
yes, I don't know how, like, as you can see how I moved around in the Zoom, but yes, I'm
Yeah.
in the Telegram group.
Yeah, because we do post, different locations and links to the different stores and things like that. But on the website unitedsabiansworldwide.com, it has all the locations, and sometimes they may not be a location in your immediate vicinity, so you may have to go to the closest one. But if there isn't one, that's also a great thing because you can start the seed. You can be the seed right there, and get together with others and start to like have study groups so you guys can work together. Because as I keep saying, the power is in our unity and coming together and working together. So yeah,
So
but
it
I will keep you. I'll send you messages and things to see where the closest location to you is. All
sounds
right.
great.
But yeah, stay close and stay in tune, and let's keep building.
Yes, sir.
All right.
It was a pleasure speaking with
Appreciate
you.
love. Pleasure speaking with you too. Until the next time, take care.
Take care.
All right. Wadu. Peace.